Hi everyone, if you're just coming in, hang on, I'll be right there. We've got some news here regarding Joan Alessandro, and John, her brother, just contacted me and asked if I would share this with all of you, so that's what I'm doing. Let me just get to the chat so I can get this, make sure that this is going right in, that you can hear me. Hang on a minute, let me go into the chat. Okay, let this come up. Okay, so Joan Alessandro's, I don't know what is going on with the lighting in here. Hang on, I don't know what is going on. It's like, no, it's not. I'm all like red in the face. Okay, is that maybe? I don't know what it is. It's I close that. Okay, anyway, her that might be a little better. Her murderer died in prison, and so now there's no more paroles that Rosemary has to go through, and none of that anymore. Joseph McGowan, he's deceased, and I'm going to go through the facts here that we have on it. And I was asked by John to share it with you because, it's a breaking news, and that Rosemary doesn't have to be bothered with that anymore, and that he won't ever get out, because that's all prior to Joan's Law. Thank you, Sandy. And when you have Joan's Law now, would that, we don't want to ever think of that happening to any other child, but if it did, the killer would never have a chance at parole. But Rosemary's had to live this nightmare, all these years. Every time he came up for parole, had to go there and tell her own story, and it's draining and it's horrible, and it's what inspired her to rally and make Joan's Law a reality, okay? And then help with Paula's Law in New York, which also says the same thing, that if I believe it's any person under 21, because it used to be 18 and I believe they raised it to 21, is murdered, okay, and they've been SA'd, okay, and that's our, we have to use that lingo here, but you know what that means. Thank you, Kubi. Thank you. Then automatically, it's life without the chance of parole. Automatically, they will never be paroled. And so that's Paula's Law and Joan's Law, and wonderful news. But let's, on those laws being passed, but still, Rosemary didn't benefit herself from that, and still had to go every time he came up for parole and talk about this. So now let's see what's going on here, and I'll tell you. Let me just clean my glasses. Okay, here we go. So let's put Rosemary's picture up first here, and then here's a picture of Rosemary with Joan behind her here. And this, I believe, is when they were, that's July 30th of 2019, near where the body of Joan was found in Harriman State Park in 1973. And I believe this was about also passing Paula's Law there. And this is the spot. It's the memorial at the spot where Joan Alessandro's body was found in Harriman State Park in 1973. And of course, we have Joan there. Okay, so let's see. Joan's smiling today, I'm sure. So Joseph McGowan, who was a former Tappan Zee High School chemistry teacher and who admitted to the murder of his 7-year-old neighbor in Hillsdale, New Jersey, Joan Angela D'Alessandro, in 1973, has died in prison. And let's see, the first thought, and this is Rosemarie speaking, the first thought that came into my mind is now we could concentrate on the 50th anniversary of Joan's impactful and loving legacy, which will be 50 years in 2023, said Rosemary D'Alessandro. We won't have to use the time and energy to fight to keep him in prison. McGowan died on June 5th, according to the New Jersey Department of Corrections, and he was serving a maximum life term in Southwood State Prison in Cumberland. Let's see. According to the D'Alessandro family, James McGowan would have been up for parole again in 2025. And just in case you don't know, Joan had gone to James McGowan's house to deliver the last 2 boxes of Girl Scout cookies on Holy Thursday, April 19th, 1973. And she was assaulted and killed within minutes of knocking on his door. McGowan, who was 6'2", essayed, beat, and strangled Joan, little wisp of a girl at just 4 feet 3 inches tall. He then wrapped up her body, loaded it into his car, and drove her north and to Harriman State Park, where you just saw where he placed her body, which was found on Easter Sunday. Okay. Joan's murder shook Bergen and Rockland counties, and believe me, yes, I know this because I lived in Bergen County, was born and raised there, and yes, if you want to read more about this case, you can check out The Killer Across the Table, written by John Douglas. The first 9 chapters of that book chronicle this case. I also have a video about this on my channel. Just search Joan D'Alessandro, and you'll see it. Okay. Rosemarie became a victim's advocate. She successfully pushed for changes to parole laws in New York and New Jersey. And both states now have Jones Law, which bans parole for a person who murders a child now they have 14, but it is not 14 here. I think this article has this wrong because I know for sure it's 18, and I think it was raised to 21 during a SA. So the family established, Jones Joy, the website. Okay, it's listed right in our video description, a foundation in Joan's memory that promotes child safety. And hold on 1 second. A mind block, and I don't want to give you the wrong jonesjoy.org. I'm certain it was .org. I just want to make sure. jonesjoy.org, you can check that out. In recent years, Rosemary D'Alessandro has advocated to extend Jones Law to cover anyone who murders someone under 18 during the commission of a S crime. She wants the law renamed to Paula's Law to honor Pearl River's Paula Bohovsky, who was 16 when she was murdered on her way home from the Hamlet's Library one evening. One of the men convicted in Paula's murder has been released from prison. The other one is currently up for parole. John Douglas, an FBI agent and author Olshaker, dedicated their book to the memory of Joan in honor of Rosemary with love and admiration. So she's really an amazing woman. We have a 2-part interview with Rosemary, and she's been on the channel other times in a grief panel, and we plan for her to come on again. So check that out, because she's really a very inspirational woman, and I'm giving her stuff, and I'm hoping that she can help with the laws for Bianca Devins. And she also speaks with Sandra Ruzak. So just wonderful things that everyone's connected. And I'm so glad I've connected to her. She's been a tremendous support through everything that I've gone through. And let's see. Trying to see what else is here. Rosemary said that people turn their unimaginable grief into activism, trying to do things for other people. Rosemary Alessandro said she couldn't think of anything else to do but try and help other families. I wasn't going to keep her in the cemetery and put flowers there on my own, Rosemary said. She was going to save a lot of people. And that she did. And I'm sure she is smiling down that her mother doesn't have to fight this fight any longer. And Rosemary has been a real voice for Joan. So I don't know. Let me see if there's anything else that I can... let's see here. That's... One second. Let me see here. Just trying to see which. McGowan. I'm looking right now at his. Let's see what this is. Very, very scary looking guy. It is. Just trying to see if it's updated here. But this is that is the Department of Corrections photo that's there. Let's see. So his birth date, March 4th, 1946. So, what is he, like 75 years old? So it could have just been natural causes or something, but, you know, like, that's a victory for Rosemary that she doesn't have to go through that anymore. So thinking of you guys, and again, check out jonesjoy.org, okay? And let me see, because John asked me, let me see if there's another article that he gave me, another article here. Let me look at this one that he gave me here. So, former high school chemistry teacher who murders 7-year-old name of the first thought. Okay, so that we did have, I think it is the same. Joan's murder shook Bergen County. It was after this case that people became aware of what could happen in a quiet neighborhood, Rosemary Alessandro told the Bergen Record in 1993. It also resonated over the border in Rockland County, New York. Rockland County's then medical examiner, Frederick Zugaby, has said the case is one of the most brutal crimes he had investigated. McGowan, who had been a teacher at Tappan Zee High School, gained notoriety as 4 killers profiled in the book The Killer Across the Table, written by John Douglas and Mark Olshaker. They also wrote the popular book Mindhunter, which is the basis for a Netflix series of the same name. And then I told you about Rosemary there. Okay, here's another quote from Rosemary. The family established Joan's Joy Foundation in Joan's memory that promotes child safety. I am thankful to my sons and the community of people that came together for all these years of support, Rosemary said on Monday evening, shortly after she was notified by the Bergen County Prosecutor's Office of McGowan's death. She added, I am also thankful that I was not overcome by hate so that I could advocate for what I believed in, which was justice and prevention. In recent years, Rosemary has advocated to extend Joan's law, as we said, and they talk about Paula's law, which we said there. One of the men, and we went over that. Let's see if there's anything else yeah. Very happy for them today. Let me see if John said anything else in his message. Hi, Carolyn, can you share this with the Ramblers? And yes, John, we are, and let your mother know that we are, and we have you in our thoughts and prayers, and I'm sure she's very happy that all of her energy can be spent on doing things with the foundation and in Joan's memory instead of having to worry about facing another parole board and going through that whole ordeal another time. Let me see here. So, great news, and what is going on with this penguin over here? Why is this penguin over here like this? Hang on. Penguin, penguin, penguin. Hold on, I've got to get, let me shut this penguin down. I didn't realize the penguin was on. Let me shut him down. There we go. Okay. Let me do something else here. We will, just in case. Uh-oh. Hold on. Hang on. Okay, that was Sandy calling me about this too. Yeah, so big news for then I'm going to put another picture up because I just in case that penguin was in the way. This is a memorial that Rosemary actually had to fight for to get that in there because people didn't want that in there, believe it or not. And not another reminder. And let's see here. So we'll put another photo of Joan up here on this day. So I'm sure she's smiling, knowing her mother can not have to worry about facing that evil monster anymore. And how relieved she must be, right? And Rosemary, let's see here. So, good news, wonderful news. She doesn't have to go through that anymore. joansjoy.org again. All that is in the video, our video description, joansjoy.org. Check it out. Here's Joan and brothers John and Michael. And picture of Joan and Rosemary. Back probably in 1973. And what else? And yeah. So, and then how about we put in another photo, which would be from Joan's Joy, yeah, joansjoy.org. You can give them a donation for the foundation, which promotes child safety, helps children at risk, helps victims of domestic violence, and does great things. So check it out if you haven't been there, joansjoy.org. You can read more about her story and the laws and activism and all of that stuff. All of that stuff. And if you haven't seen, we have a 2-part interview. Check out the 2-part interview on this on our channel. And hi Nana Patty and everybody. Let's see who's here. Hello. Hi, Sour Milk and Cookies, whisper to me. G-Maps, what a relief for Rosemary, you say. Rosemary. He was so conceited. I remember reading about how he interacted with her. You were the one that kept saying about the book, I think. And I was like, what? She went to the house looking for Joan, and he gave me the chills. Yes, with that bathrobe and going up those stairs, and she knew her life would change forever. Bella Mac, Susie B, Whisper to Me, Mimi, Debbie L, creatively inspired by Denise, Kubi, Aurora Rodriguez, Emma B. Let's see here. Davita Lane, G-Maps, Kim Chihuahuas, Sandy Gork, welcome to Detective Rambler. Thank you for becoming a Detective Rambler, Sandy. We're happy to have you here. Sportinguista. Did you put that, you changed your name a little bit? I don't remember those zeros. April F. Baxter Boo. Thankful and Grateful. 80s Girl. Hi. Let's see. Mary Martinez. Christy Love, Mary Beth, Patty Ann Hatch, Nana Patty, Ashley Vestal, G-Maps. Let's see, what did you say? Heavens to Betsy. Hi, Carolyn. Thanks for the update. Thank goodness this predator is off the face of this earth. Much love to Rosemarie. To Scooter, she doesn't have to keep watch on him anymore. Yes, he was finally released from prison in a pine box. Okay. I think Sandra. Okay, now I see Sandra. Hold on a second. Sandra, Deborah Van Couverden, I got Sour Milk and Cookies, Chelsea. Hello, everybody. So good news here, Rosemarie. Everybody is very happy that you no longer have to be subjected to this anymore. Monica Williams, Anna Sweden, REA, Stacy Thornton, okay, Carol Plant, Sandra, The Killer Across the Table. Yes, you can read the first 9 chapters. The Killer Across the Table by John Douglas and Mark Olshaker has the Joan story in it. We also have a video about Joan and the interview with Rosemarie. So, which is really, really good and something, you know, you should watch if you're interested in learning more about just how inspirational Rosemarie is, because like she said, she wanted to do more because she wanted Joan's voice to be heard, and she's definitely Joan's voice, and she took that seriously and then created these laws and helped create them and is still going and going and going like the Energizer Bunny. So I just want to see something really fast here. Hold on one second. I think, 1 second, 20th anniversary, we have, okay. Let me see here. Trying to pull this. Hang on 1 second. I think this is. Let me see how many. Maybe we should just do this here for anybody that's looking about this case. Let's see if we can do this. Do this. Hey everyone, you probably heard me speak about the Joan Alessandro case if you've been in some of my lives. I even did, I think, a small presentation about it in one live, and I've told you about it before. It's a case that's near and dear to me because even though Joan was older than I was, if you grew up in Bergen County in the 70s and 80s, you knew her story. She is a 7-year-old girl who was sexually molested and killed by her neighbor who was a teacher in a nearby school. And it was a case that just rocked not only Hillsdale, but all of the surrounding northern New Jersey suburban towns, where up to that point, things like this were not happening. And it forever changed that dynamic to the point that I can tell you even years later, when I was in 1st grade, I can still remember to this day the chief of police coming in with a special book that was made because of this case, that was made in children's terms, and I can remember it clearly because it made such an impression about this case. I can also remember being a Brownie Girl Scout myself, and because of this case, our mothers were hyper aware. And believe me, no Brownie Girl Scout ever went anywhere alone at all, ever. So this case was, yes, it rocked those communities. And I noticed that a lot of people outside of Bergen County, like when I spoke to a lot of you, you didn't know about this case. Few of you that grew up in that area knew about it. Now, in going over the information for tonight, I found out two interesting facts. That the judge on this case is the father of one of my older brother's very good friends, okay? So that was something interesting that I learned. And I also learned that the upcoming book that we've been speaking about, The Killer Across the Table, written by FBI profiler John, I keep wanting Douglas. I keep having a brain freeze on his last name. John Douglas from, Mindhunters, but a famous FBI profiler, profiles Joan's killer and is one of the reasons that he was not granted parole. But I'll go through that. John had said he had the serial killer tendencies. He would kill again and again. He had the makings of a mass killer. So that wants me to get that book even more now, and definitely I really want to do it for the second book of the book club. But let's go into this for those of you that are not familiar with it, and for those of you that are familiar with this case, it'll be a refresher, and I think will lead up to what is in the 9 chapters of that new book. In April 1973, Joan was just 7 years old when she went to deliver 2 boxes of Girl Scout cookies to a neighbor who lived just across the street and 3 houses down from her own in Hillsdale, New Jersey. The neighbor, a Tappan Zee High School chemistry teacher, Joseph McGowan, sexually molested and murdered Joan on April 19th, which happened to be Holy Thursday that year. Joan's body was found 3 days later on Easter Sunday in a sepulchre-like space in a large rock at Harriman State Park in New York. McGowan pleads guilty. McGowan pleaded guilty to murder on December 4th, 1973, but Judge Fred Galda, which, side note here, Mr. Galda is the father of one of my brother's best friends, refused the plea. Joan had been sexually assaulted, the autopsy showed, and murder in the commission of a sex crime carried a much heavier minimum sentence. Mr. Galda, the judge, Honorable Fred Galda, was an attorney that was judge for many high-profile cases in his time. In fact, he was on a case where there was, I believe it was the murder of 2 police officers, and he was also key as one of the first domestic battery cases where, you know, they really took it seriously, and the battered woman's defense was used. So you might want to check him out. But that was another, you know, I didn't realize until I had gotten here. I'm like, oh my gosh. Okay. So yeah, Fred Galda. So the judge demanded the prosecutor try McGowan for the more serious charge. Once a jury had been selected, the following June, McGowan again pleaded guilty. In November, after the defense argued unsuccessfully that McGowan's crime should be considered second rather than first-degree murder. Joan's killer, Joseph McGowan, received a life sentence, which meant that after 14 years, he would be eligible for parole. He became eligible for parole in 1987 and was denied. In 1993, when he became eligible again, there was a 9-month campaign spearheaded by Joan's mom, Rosemary, you see her in the picture there, which included a candlelight vigil to keep him behind bars. Appeals for parole ineligibility. McGowan received a 20-year term, which was reduced to 12 years because of work credits and good behavior credits. He appealed his ineligibility for parole twice, and the first time the appeals court requested new information from the parole board. The second time, 3 appellate court judges decided to return his request to the parole board again. The parole board was told they had to base their decision on whether or not the inmate would commit another crime. Whether he was rehabilitated was not an issue. In reevaluating the entire case, the parole board received the assistance of John Douglas, the innovator of criminal personality profiling. It was determined through his help that McGowan has the makeup of a mass murderer or a serial killer. Also, John Douglas got him to open up, and McGowan mentioned that he had inherited money from his deceased mother, and it was put away so that the Alessandro family couldn't get it. McGowan had used this money to hire a lawyer for his first 2 appeals. On December 2, 1998, the parole board denied his parole again. Acting as his own lawyer, he appealed for a 3rd time, but the appeals court affirmed the parole board's decision on February 15, 2002. McGowan became eligible for parole again in January 2009 and was denied. The parole board will soon decide when his 4th eligibility is due. Rosemary believed that changes in our laws were needed. After 3 years of work with the grassroots movement, Joan's Law was signed by Governor Christie Whitman on April 3, 1997 in New Jersey. It says that anyone who murders a child under the age of 14 in conjunction with a sexual offense will never be eligible for parole and will never get out of prison. The law cannot apply to Joan's case because it's not retroactive. A federal version of Joan's Law was signed by President Clinton on October 30th, 1998. Seeing the need for more victims' rights, Rosemary proposed and advocated the Justice for Victims Law that was passed in New Jersey on November 17, 2000. It eliminates the statute of limitations for wrongful death actions brought in murder, manslaughter, and aggravated manslaughter cases, allowing the victims to sue criminals if they acquire inheritance or other assets any time after the crime. She used the law on April 19, 2001, on the 28th anniversary of Joan's death, to file a wrongful death suit against Joan's killer to ensure that he will not have monies for appeals. He did not contest the suit, and on September 26, 2001, a $750,000 judgment was awarded. To this date, about $600 has been collected, and it has all gone to Joan's foundation. A New York version of Joan's Law was signed by Governor George Pataki on September 15, 2004 in Harriman State Park, the site where Joan was found. 1998 marked the 25th anniversary of Joan's death. Joan Angela D'Alessandro Memorial Foundation, which is nonprofit, was created. Its goals are to promote child safety and protection, advance victims' rights, and help homeless and neglected youth. Joan's legacy lives on through the laws and the foundation. Joan Angela D'Alessandro Memorial Foundation. The wait is over for Rosemarie D'Alessandro. The healing can begin. That's because the man who raped and killed her 7-year-old daughter will in all likelihood die behind bars. It is a free feeling, D'Alessandro told the Cliffview Pilot after getting the news. Joseph McGowan, who butchered the 7-year-old Girl Scout in 1973, had until Wednesday to appeal the State Parole Board's spring ruling that he wait 30 years, about 18 after good behavior deductions, before applying again for parole. McGowan, who was then 63, didn't appeal, all but guaranteeing he won't touch another child. As the near finality of its setting sunk in, Rosemarie D'Alessandro has no regrets for making this her life's mission. Inside, I knew great things were going to come out of Joan's life because of the special energy she had and has, and the fact that she was found on Easter Sunday. D'Alessandro said, "This is what really drove me. I feel I knew why I was put on this earth." McGowan had 180 days to appeal the Parole Board's early June decision. Because he didn't, he must spend at least 18 more years in prison before there's even a possibility of another hearing. This relieves Rosemarie D'Alessandro and her family of the lengthy appeals process that followed prior parole decisions. It took 8 years for the courts to affirm McGowan's denial in 1994. He was able to keep his bid alive by paying a lawyer with an inheritance, but that can't happen now, thanks to D'Alessandro, who spearheaded the passage of New Jersey's Justice for Victims law, which allows a victim's family to take all visible money. D'Alessandro said she was overwhelmed by the 80,000 signatures collected and more than 7,000 letters sent to the parole board earlier that year. She also cited support for foundations created in Joan's name that helps the homeless, runaways, and abused youngsters. With no more appeals to deal with, D'Alessandro said she's looking forward to sharing the journey with others seeking similar justice. D'Alessandro, who has fought tooth and nail for justice for more than 30 years, called previous appeals of McGowan's parole denials a grain of sand in my shoe. And now I'm free of that. I don't have to fight like that anymore. Now, she said, fighting for justice was very important to me, and this shows me that it can work. I went for what I believed in without revenge. My main inspirational person is Joan, Rosemarie said. I would not have been doing what I'm doing to this day if it wasn't for her inspiration, and it's like she's telling me to do what I'm doing. Her daughter's heart and soul are remembered each day in the work that she does, by the pictures that line the walls of her home, in her daughter's tiny ballet slippers preserved on display just outside the kitchen, and by the white butterflies placed throughout the house. Rosemarie even keeps a rock from the place where Joan's sexually molested and murdered body was found at Harriman State Park in New York. The Joan Angela D'Alessandro White Butterfly Sculpture and Garden is located in front of the Hillsdale train station on the corner of Broadway and Hillsdale Avenue. I had this idea originally for the sculpture and garden because it was the 40th anniversary since Joan left the earth, Rosemarie said. I wanted to do something to show what the message about her life and death was, and it really is a very positive message, which would symbolize child safety forever, even 200 years from now. One side of the sculpture will have an engraved butterfly with the slogan, "Remember Joan today so tomorrow's children will be safe." The other side of the sculpture will have Joan's picture, her story, and how the white butterfly has become the enduring symbol for the D'Alessandro family and the protection of children. I don't think of it as sad at all, she said. This is awesome. They're going to have the sculpture there. We're going to have this garden. The garden will be a place to remember a little girl's bright smile, a place to remember her sparkling eyes and caring spirit, a place to perpetrate the message about child safety and protection. Rosemarie's work, she says, is all about Joan's spirit and the joy that death could not extinguish. 41 years later, Rosemarie is filled with passion, patience, and perseverance. With love in her heart, she is as driven as ever. I don't think of age, she said. I think of life. Like Abraham Lincoln said, you know, it's the life you put into your years. For more information on Joan and the Joan Angela D'Alessandro White Butterfly Sculpture and Garden, you can visit the website joansjoy.org. The whole idea was always about to have more awareness, that in time the story doesn't fade, that people then remember about child safety, John said. That's Joan's brother. For Rosemarie, the white butterfly became significant in Joan's story. During a visit to Harriman State Park on a cold April day, Rosemarie saw the butterfly over a hill near the area where Joan's body was found. She saw a white butterfly, and it really struck her as a sign that Joan was happy and that she was feeling better, John said. She began telling the story over and over, and it evolved into a symbol of Joan's energy and a symbol of Joan's spirit. Just as Rosemarie gleans positivity from those moments and takes joy in her daughter's memory and spirit, she continues to take joy in the unveiling of the sculpture and garden. But it wasn't without a fight. After 9 months of debate, the mayor and council say the language planned for a memorial to a slain borough girl is too graphic, to dismay of the girl's mother, who has worked for decades to help enact child safety laws. Rosemarie D'Alessandro has sought for months to install a statue honoring her daughter Joan, who was molested and murdered over 40 years ago by Joseph McGowan, a neighbor, when she went to his house to deliver Girl Scout cookies. Since her daughter's death, D'Alessandro has lobbied to enact 4 state and federal laws to ensure that those who commit such crimes are denied parole. The construction and unveiling of the statue, a large granite rock to be engraved with a butterfly and placed near the borough's train station, has been delayed because of the council's concern about the graphic nature of the original text, which included the words molested and murdered. Mayor Max Arnowitz and several council members said during a meeting one night that dozens of borough residents were uncomfortable with the most recent version of the text, the record reported. Some residents questioned why another memorial for Joan was being considered when there were already 3 throughout the town. Some people do not want it built near the train station, which is county property. The text, which has been revised several times and approved by the county, a psychologist, the Girl Scouts, and the family, adds more details about Joan's personality and emphasizes that the laws passed in her name will ensure victims' rights. It says that Joan was lured and her life was taken on Holy Thursday, and that the neighbor was convicted of murder in the 1st degree and sentenced to life. I think the message that's being put on here becomes, in my opinion, More of a memorial to a crime than to a little girl, Councilman Douglas Frank said. Councilman Frank Pizzella, who has been a liaison between the Joan Angela D. Alessandro Foundation and the Council, said the revised language emphasizes Joan's legacy through her mother's work. Residents should be proud of what this woman has accomplished, Pizzella said. The Hillsdale Council unanimously approved Tuesday the text that will appear on a memorial to Joan D. Alessandro, a borough resident who was murdered over 40 years ago when she was just 7 years old. The vote followed months of debate and revisions on how to best describe what happened to Joan. I just had tears, her mother, Rosemary D'Alessandro, said after hearing of the approval. I had tears of joy, tears of relief. The original version of the text proposed by D'Alessandro earlier this month made officials uncomfortable with the phrase molested and murdered. We're talking about people coming off the train, and the first thing they see is a girl who was molested and murdered in Hillsdale, Councilman Larry Meyerson said in July. The next version states in part that while delivering cookies on Holy Thursday, Joan was the victim of a heinous crime at the hands of her neighbor who lived 3 houses away. With this loss of innocence, society's emphasis on child safety changed overnight. It certainly did. I can attest to that. We've made great strides, Mayor Max Arnowitz said Tuesday. My feeling is it's fine now. It also includes information about the conviction of Joseph McGowan, the man who murdered Joan. Rosemary D'Alessandro said she was comfortable with the final wording, noting that parts of it wouldn't have been included had it not been for the public review. The final version achieves her goals of explaining what happened to Joan, its historic impact, and promoting child safety, she said. We couldn't change what happened. It had to be there, D'Alessandro said. Children weren't playing in the woods anymore. They weren't walking down the street. This is historic. The new monument will be built on the grassy area in front of the Hillsdale train station. D'Alessandro said she hoped to unveil it on April 3rd, the anniversary of the first Jones Law, and she got to do that, okay? D'Alessandro is also seeking support for a new Jones Law in New Jersey, which would extend the age from 14 to 18. Anyone who wants to help can obtain a petition packet, or they can email rosebd@email.com or reach out via the Jones Joy Facebook page. This is a message for society, D'Alessandro said. I will never stop fighting for that. Now, Joan's case and Rosemary's personal story are included in 9 chapters of the new book, The Killer Across the Table by John Douglas and Mark Olshaker. This is really something that really makes me want to buy the book immediately. I didn't know this when I had already wanted to buy the book, but knowing that it has 9 chapters devoted to Joan D'Alessandro and Rosemary Alessandro and what happened by John Douglas is just amazing to me, and I can't wait to get this book and read about that, because like I said, this case is one that I grew up with, that most people that grew up in Bergen County will remember, okay, because it instilled a fear that there wasn't prior to this. So very important, and I really want to check out this book. So thank you very much for coming along with me. I think I showed you or told you a little bit about this in another live, but because it was in a live, you know, sometimes it gets mixed in there. So I wanted to do another presentation of this information by itself, and then finding out that it's in this book. When I do read the book and read those 9 chapters, I will do another video about that after I see what John did to profile this killer and show that he had serial killer tendencies, and he would come out and he would murder again in all probability. So I will definitely dive deeper into that. All right. Thank you guys so much for watching. Now, one more thing. Remembering Joan, the motto for Joan's Joy, a memorial foundation in Joan D'Alessandro's name reads, "Remember Joan today, so tomorrow's children will be safe." So you can check out the foundation and everything. The websites are in the presentation, and check it out. It's a very, valuable resource and a great foundation. Rose, then you should definitely check out the two-part interview that we did with Rosemary in April or May of 2020. You should definitely check that out. And let me see if I can put the link in here so you guys can check it out, because it's a must. Okay. So there's two parts, and here's the first part. So you might want to open that and bookmark it or whatever you need to do. And get to the second one. So let's see here. And here's the second part. Okay, and yeah, so that's the sculpture. Okay. All right, so I'm going to let you go because I've been in meetings all day and stuff, but great news. Happy for you guys, Rosemary, John, Michael. We've got you, and love you guys, and I'll see you guys later. Everybody have a good day. Bye.
Come on. Come here. What is that?